Hello friends, welcome to this week 5th lecture of week 11 of soil and water conservation engineering course. So, in this module actually we were discussing about the wind erosion. Okay. So, we have seen in these 5 classes that what is wind erosion, what are the different factors that affect the wind erosions or they can trigger the wind erosion. So, and we have seen the mechanics of the movement, we have seen how the initiation start, the wind erosion is mechanism of movement in terms of initiation of the initiation of the movement, detachment of the soil particle from the surface. Then in terms of transport, we have seen how it is being transported from one place to another place. We have seen the next step is to deposition, and we have also seen the various transport mechanism. So, we have seen the saltation, we have seen the suspension, what is meant by suspension, we have seen what is meant by surface creep. So, different mode of transport we have seen actually, and after that we have seen that to control wind erosion we actually need two things. We either we have to control or we have to reduce the erosiveness of wind by constructing some kind of barrier, or we can make a soil surface more resistant to the wind erosion. So, we have seen the different types of measures to prevent the wind erosion, to prevent the movement of soil from the surface. So, and then in the next class we have seen mechanical barriers like design of wind breaks and what can be the optimum spacing and what are the different design requirements. We have also seen the shelter belts. Then in the next class we have seen what are the sand dunes, wind variabilities, wind variability directions, classification of sand dunes, and how sand dunes form over coastal regions. Okay. So, in this present class we will be focusing on stabilization of sand dunes. Okay. How to stabilize the sand dunes? So, the sand dunes, they are commonly found in a shoreline and mostly in a desert environment. Okay. Mostly they are found in the coastal regions or in the desert environment. So, naturally they are essential because they can be a natural defense mechanism by nature. Okay. So, they can protect the beaches from erosion and recruit new sand to the eroded beaches, formation of new sand. Okay. So, and this but because of the if the wind velocities are very high, so the sand which are under influence of strong winds can be drifted to downwind direction to more inward and it can be deposited to more inward depositional locations. So, it can be that so that can result into the inward expansion of old dunes. So, sometimes this can happen because of the natural process, or sometimes it can happen because of the anthropogenic activity. So, sometimes like if you can see if in a desert region or regions which has sand dunes and which are more prone to wind erosion. So, because of the faulty agricultural practices, if you are clearing or we are cutting the natural vegetation cover from the surface. So, the dunes, the older dunes may shift more inwards and new dunes may form. So, we will be having, so there will be expansion of dune area. So, we need to adopt different measures to control this kind of expansion of dunes or expansion of dune, or you can say the transport of sands, transport of sand from one place to another place. So, so what we have to do, so we have to stabilize the existing sand dune, so that the sand drifting can be prevented. Okay. Okay. So, mode so in the sand movement mode and rate of movement actually depends on the different criteria. First, the type of dune, and then the wind velocity, strength of wind, direction of the wind, then the sand grain property of the sand grain, the moisture content, humidity of sands, dune sand, and relative density of sand layers within the dune system. Okay. Then so this stabilization is needed to protect the area downwind. So, let us see what are the different measures. So, as I discussed earlier also that to control wind erosion, what we have to do. So, either we have to reduce the wind velocity, or we have to slow down the wind velocity at some particular location, or we can make soil surface more resistant to the wind erosion. Okay, so there are some measures. So suppose if you are planning for long term solutions, so for long term solution means the permanent control measures. So permanent control measure means you can go for afforestation to plant more trees, but normally it takes lot of time and investment. So before that you can go for some temporary sand control system. Okay, so basically this temporary control systems can be a initial step for a permanent solution, or they can be a temporary solution to the existing problem. So the temporary sand control systems are actually can be in the form of shielding the surface or covering the surface with the stable materials, or by establishing or constructing the sand fences, which can trap the sand, okay, and they can stop the further movement of sand. Okay. So this, as I said, this stabilization, it can be achieved by either reducing the wind speed by different measures, or by using vegetation cover over the surface. So different measures include the chemical measures, spraying of chemicals, then mechanical measures for like construction of barriers, wind breaks, that kind of thing, or biological measures. Biological measure means plantation of trees or shrubs or that regions which are more suitable to that region, and also by maintaining a proper soil, plant and water balance, so that the movement of sand or detachment of sand can be stopped. Okay. So the purpose of sand temporary sand control is actually to control further moving as dune or sand drifting during the initial period of any permanent sand control system, and also to enhance the condition which can be suitable, which can favor the plant growth in future. Okay. And then there is a permanent control system. So let us see the first type of temporary control measures. So first is the sand shielding. So in sand shielding, it includes by use of stone mulch, or by wetting the surface either by water, or in some areas where the petroleum wastes are available. So we can apply some kind of some oil to the limited area also, the waste product actually I am talking about. Then use of some chemical stabilizers which can favors the bonding between the soil grains particle. Then biological crusting, then or by covering the upper layer soil by different covers such as plastic, nets and geotextiles. Okay, so let us see what is sand stone mulch. Okay. So according to US Highway Research Board 1973, so they advise or they recommend the use of gravel or stone or crushed rock blankets to control the erosion during the process of highway construction. So sometimes suppose when the vegetative measures are almost impossible, so in that case this kind of measure can be used. So they also, this US HRB US Highway Research Board, they specified that by forming a blanket of gravel smaller than half inch in diameter, we can withstand a velocity up to 137 kilometer per hour. Okay. So or we can say we can use around 1 inch of layer of aggregate of gravel, which is normally adequate for areas that are not subjected to the traffic. So this is in terms of roads. Okay. So suggested grading include that there should be a 100% passing in 1.5 inch sieve, then 60 to 90% passing in 1 inch sieve, then passing 1/4 is around 20%. So this kind of grading can be used. Then also according to this Egyptian Desert Institute, so they recommended to use gravel of size greater than 2 mm. So and they have specified the quantities also. So the fine gravels can of around a quantity of 20 tons per acre can be used, and the medium gravel of quantity around 50 tons per acre can also be used, and then crushed rock or clay can be used around 100 tons per acre. So this is that stone mulch. Then comes to the water, another popular temporary control system is the water or application of water or brine wetting. So, water can be used, water can be sprayed on the surface. So, to increase the cohesion between grains, so we can spray it to increase the percentage of fine particle between the sand grains. So, presence of water can promote a vegetation growth, and it also reduce the harmful salt content in the soil, which can further lead to the growth of vegetation. Okay. Also, in brine wetting, in the brines which are normally rich in carbonates and sulphate precipitate salts, that tends to cement the sand grains, and this is the wind erosion. Okay. So, brine wetting can also be used here. Then use of chemical stabilizers. So, some kind of chemicals which are available and which are cost effective, it can be used to prevent the sand movement. So, these chemical stabilizers are normally applied on the sand to control the sand movement and advancement of dunes. Okay. So, these chemical stabilizers act as an adhesive binder for the sand, and some chemicals they form a film on the sand grains that increases the specific gravity, and therefore, they consequently decreases the rate of erosion. So, they form some kind of thin film over the surface, so which can prevent the erosion, soil erosion. So, this is according to Kaul 1996, they have mentioned. So, in the context of Thar deserts in India, so they have mentioned different major chemical products that are available in market, which can be used to control the which can be used as a chemical stabilizer to prevent the sand movement. Okay. So, they are in the form of powders like sand top, or some of them are in the form of liquids, or some of them in the form of mesh, some of them are in the form of in the form of mesh of very fine strands. Okay. So, the application can include by spraying or spraying on the surface, and they have different their application doses are mentioned here. So, this kind of chemical stabilizer can be selected by proper considering the different by proper considering the requirement of the regions. So, this chemical stabilizer can be the effectiveness of this chemical stabilizer can be decided based on by assessing its solubility in water, by calculating by knowing the optimum dilution ratio, then optimum application rate, what is the optimum application rate, so that it can be cost effective, then bonding strength of the material, then rate of surface erosion. So, to what extent the erosion is happening over that region, then effective life of the chemical which is being applied over the field, so that it can sustain the natural field conditions, it can sustain the heat, humidity, rainfall and ultraviolet rays. Then effect of chemical on seed germination, on seed germination, so it should not affect the growth of plant also. So, our purpose is to maintain a proper plant cover also. So, this the chemical which you are using, it should not harm the plants. So, this care has to be taken while selecting any chemical stabilizer. Then biological crusting. So, in the regions where frequent dewfall is observed, so this frequent dewfall can contribute to the stabilization of sand dunes. So, this available moisture from this frequent dewfall can be a source of moisture for formation of biological crust or regions. So, these crusts are actually formed by biological activity of blue algae, which can promote the stability over the dunes. Okay. Then this is the most common and most popular temporary measures to control the sand movement. So, that is the sand fences or construction of sand barriers in the form of benches. So, idea is here they will trap the sand and they can stop the further movement of sand, or they can stabilize the sand dune, or they can form an artificial sand dunes. Okay. So, that the further movement of sand to the inward direction can be stopped. So, the sand fences, they are widely used for beach preservation, dune restoration. Typically, it is consist of lightweight wood strips, wires or perforated plastic sheets attached to regularly spaced stakes. So they are actually based on different kinds of materials. So which is actually locally available, like woods or plastic nets, or we can use also the residual of plants, okay, or we can use the plastic cover, wire mesh. So different kind of material that can be used collectively to establish the sand fence, so that the movement of sand can be stopped. Okay. So these are the major prerequisites for sand fences. The structure which we are selected, or sand fences which are selected or designed for a particular area, they should reduce the wind speed, but that does not they should not completely block the wind. So in case of windbreaks, actually we have seen that windbreaks actually the windbreak or any kind of barrier, it should actually allow some kind of airflow within the porous media. So the barrier should not be complete solid, because the porosity is less or it is more solid, then there is a possibility of formation of vortex. Okay. So we need to take care of that also. So it is recommended that around 40 to 50% porosity is good, which can provide a greater extent of protection. Okay. So and also in addition to that, we need to do some kind of initial study to understand the material. Okay. So how this material reacts with the wind, and we also should know the wind profile over height, so that we can increase the extent of protection. Okay. Then this is a typical example. This is a different example of sand fencing. So different types of sand fencings are normally used to protect and encourage accretion of sand on coastal beaches and dunes. So this is in the first case. In the first case, here you can see can we stop here? Just
choose pen, sir.
no, this icons are not visible. So these are the different. So we can use different types of fencing. Different types of fencing can be used to help and protect and encourage the creation of sand on the coastal beaches and dunes. So this is one example. Here we can see the use of the coconut leaves, and fences are made fences are made from the coconut leaves in the in Brazil area. And there are different types actually. So here we can see the different types of wooden planks are used as a sand fences. Here we can see some kind of development of some plants, growth of plants over the dunes. Here they have used some kind of wire mesh. So different types of materials can be used to construct the sand fences. Okay. So these sand fences are can be like checkerboard fence, or they can be our 4-dune fences, and 4-dune fences can be again impounding type or diversion type sand fences. So this is a typical checkerboard fences. So here we can see there is a series of rectangles which are actually made up of plant residues or plastic nets. Okay. So these are here actually they are made up of plant residues. So approximate height is around 50 to 70 centimeters, and we can form a mesh of these rectangles of size around 3 by 3 meter. So idea is here that they can withstand weather condition for few years, so that they can make a favorable condition for future growth of plants, or they can withstand weather condition for few years, which is long enough to implement or to incorporate the permanent solution. So, this is just one example of checkerboard fence. Then if we see okay. So, this is another example of checkerboard system, where straws as I said, the plant residues are used here. Okay. So, then comes to the 4 dune fences. So, first we will discuss about the impounding sand fences. So, idea here is to trap more sand. So, to stop further movement of to trap more sand, so that we can stop the movement of sand dunes. Okay. So, these are similar to vegetation. These are similar to vegetation belt, but they are made up of palm leaves, woods, fibers, glass, or sometimes concrete. Okay. So, as in the case of windbreaks and other measures, we have seen that the construction of barrier should be normal to the wind direction. So, here also they can be normal to wind direction. So, design should be based, and the design should be based on the local environmental conditions. So, first we have to study the local environment, what is the required, or what are the different materials which are available there. Then we can consider using of multiple rows as compared to the single row. So, and then the height also we can see it can normally range about 0.5 to 1.2 meters. Another important thing is that fence should be erected around 50 meter downwind of the erosion area, or approximately 30 to 60 times the fence height from the area to be protected. Okay. Then this porosity of fence should be, as I discussed before also, that porosity the media should be porous enough. So, around 30 to 40% or sometimes 50% can be used. Then fence, they should extend around 10 to 20 times its height beyond the area that needs protection. Okay. So, this is one example of impounding sand fences. So, idea is here. So, we are constructing series of we have to construct series of these traps. So, this fence there eventually they will be buried by the trap sands. So, new fences must be erected on the accumulating mold. Okay. So, we can form a bigger sand dune, which can stop the further movement of sand to the to the inward land. Okay. So, the fences should be located in the areas. So, the important condition is that the fences, this kind of fences should be located in areas where the creation of large artificial dune will not pose any problem to the local condition. So, this is another example of impounding type sand fences. So, this kind of fences they need a regular maintenance and sometimes renewal to avoid a deterioration, or sometimes it can be constructed from better material. Okay. So, this was actually impounding type sand fences. Then let us see the diversion sand fence. So, the idea here is to divert or deflect the sand movement or deflect the wind. Okay. So, they trap the sand. So, the purpose of these diversion sand fences are so that they trap the sand as well as they deflect the sand away from the area that needs to be protection, that needs to be protected. Okay. So, the effectiveness and the lifespan of diversion fences depending on the material of construction, height and porosity. So, the effectiveness of this structure, it actually depends upon the material of construction and the height which we have selected and also the porosity of the barrier. Okay. So, sometimes they are erected either as a single fence, which are actually 45 degree from the wind direction, or in the form of V shaped fences pointing in the upwind direction. So, so that we can deflect the quantity of sand away from the region which needs a protection. Okay. So, now as we have seen the different types of temporary measures to control the sand movement. So idea of using temporary system is to make a region to make a condition more favorable for adopting a temporal or permanent controls. So by permanent control system we means afforestation, means establishment of proper tree cover or vegetation cover over that surface. Okay. So the idea of permanent or permanent sun control system is to decrease the wind speed by and to also to protect the ground from the scoring. Then if there is a proper afforestation happening or establishment of tree covers, then it can modify the microclimate in that area. So also to enhance the soil conditions for future plant growth. So these are the actually goals of the permanent sun control system. First, to decrease the wind speed, then to protect the ground from scoring, then to modify the microclimate area, to modify the microclimatic condition over that area, and then to enhance the soil conditions for future growth of plant. Okay. And also sometimes it can be used to create a recreational area. Okay. So these are the actually the goals of permanent sun control system. So this is this example shows the different types. So we can see, so if there is a proper vegetation cover is present, so it can help in forming the, or it can help in stabilizing the dunes over that region. So it can further which can prevent actually the further movement of sand. Okay. So they can bind the soil particle together, so that the drifting of sand can be stopped. Okay. So it is the most appealing way to mitigate the dune migration hazard. So this is this example is actually over the desert region, this is in the coastal regions. So you can see wherever there is a vegetation present, we can see, so the soil particle can be bind together. So it can stabilize the surface condition over that region. Okay. So there are different factors that are critical for afforestation application. So the key factors includes the availability of water. If you are going for afforestation, so you should check whether the enough water is available, or in the absence of water you should know what are the different you should identify different source of water. Okay. Then vegetation, the plants, the proper selection of plant is more important actually. The plant should be tolerant to that environmental condition or that regions or that climate. Okay. And then of course the site maintenance. So once you adopt any kind of permanent control measures, you should maintain that that site, so so that the effectiveness of a permanent control system can be can be observed. Okay. So site maintenance means consideration of all unlawful activities, or stopping of tree passing or any you can say any human induced activity which can lead to further expansion of wind erosion area. Okay. So for the first component we have seen the water. So we need to identify the source of water. So if the water is not available, so you need to identify the potential sources. Okay. So in some cases groundwater can be used for limited applications, then rainwater harvesting, dew water harvesting can be think of, then water harvesting from Sabka and wastewater also it can be used. There are different possibilities. So we need to identify the source of water. Then selection of plant. So this is perhaps the most important component of afforestation or permanent control measures, that we need to identify a variety of plant which is more suitable for that region. Okay. So the plant growth should be optimum in that region, and they should not and they should be actually tolerant to the climatic condition or region. So over the sand dunes, suppose there is a they should be sand bury resistant, and they can sustain the erosion of wind. Okay. So wind erosion resistance, the root system should be well developed, Okay, so the root should be developed strongly. Then they should be resistant to the drought and barren conditions, and they should strongly favor the exposure of sunlight. Okay, and other measures are like the depending on the availability of soil moisture, the salinity over that region, the soil salinity over that region, then quantity and quality of available water. Depending on that, you can select a typical plant species which can be used as a permanent control system. Then comes to the site maintenance. So, once you are decided that you are going for this permanent control system by application of by using a particular method or by application of plant cover over that region. So, you need a regular maintenance. Okay. So, the site should be protected against all possible unlawful grazing activity, and this site should be protected against possible tree passing and firewood cutting. So, human anthropogenic activities like cutting of trees for or vegetation for fuels and fodder, or maybe any kind of activities which can deteriorate the conditions over that region. So, all this kind of activity should be prevented. So, with that actually we will stop here. So, in this module actually we have seen what is wind erosion and what are the different factors that triggers the wind erosions, and different ways which we can prevent wind erosion. We have seen the process of wind erosion, we have seen the how the wind erosion start, the initiation step, the transport, the deposition, then the transport in the form of in the suspension, saltation, deposition, and we have seen the different types, different kinds of measures that can be used to prevent the wind erosion. We have seen the application of vegetation. We have seen the application of different measures actually which can prevent the wind erosion. So, idea here is to effectively to control wind erosion. We need to consider two things, either to reduce the wind speed or to make a and to make the surface condition more resistant to the wind erosion. So, this can be achieved by planting or by establishment of some kind of mechanical barriers in the form of wind breaks, shelter breaks, or in some kind of in case of sand dunes we can see establishment of sand fences, so that the dangers due to wind erosion can be prevented. Okay. So, with that we will stop here. Okay. So, thank you very much.